you for watching today. And Trish, I appreciate you coming. Trish Wortman, one of our agents, for
30 years.
32 years. And Arthur Fleischer, another one of our agents. How long have you been an agent?
10 years.
10 years, okay. And a good friend of mine, Don Reese, a homeowner out here in the desert. Don, how long have you had a place down here in the desert?
11 years.
11 years. So we're going to talk about the February 2022 Desert Housing Report and start here from the beginning. It's just got a nice picture of the desert there. I wish I knew which country club that is. Probably one in Quinta, if I were to guess, looking at the mountains. Okay, there's basically 9 desert cities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They got 10 desert cities here, including Desert Hot Springs, Coachella, and Bermuda Dunes on it. And we're stretched across about a 20-25 mile area. A quick summary, and I should on the summary say, this report is given out monthly to all Coachella Valley agents if they're a member of the Greater Palm Springs Realtors or the California Desert Association of Realtors. They're the ones that actually own the copyrights to it, but being an agent broker with it myself, I'm allowed to share it with my social media. And we'll go here. Okay, this is where we are at for the average price of a detached home. So that's a regular single family home in the Coachella Valley in February 2022. Over on the far right, this is February of 2002. So over a 20-year stretch, you can see that we've gone from right around $200,000 for the average price of a home to $630,000. And if you look at just in the last 2 years, what we've done under COVID, we've gone from about $400,000 to $630,000. So in a 2-year stretch, we've seen, what's that, about a 30% increase? Or from 400 to 600. Some people would say that's a 50% increase, but it's a pretty substantial increase, okay, to go up from that level. A year ago, we were at 527. Okay, so even in a single year, to go up 100 grand basically on an average price of a home. I know it's created a situation, Trish and I were talking earlier about how competitive it is in trying to get a bid accepted. Trish, what were you saying? You had seen a Desert Hot Springs and a North Palm Springs condo?
Yes, Desert Hot Springs, I listed a beautiful little home over there for $339,000, and right at market value doing my comps, and it sold for $390,000.
From $339 list price to $390,000 a Desert Hot Springs.
And it sold in a week.
I was going to ask you, and in 1 week. That's typical that our agents are coming in.
And we had 6 offers.
6 offers in a week, and it ended up going $339 to $390.
$50,000.
Yeah, $50,000 over asking price. That's pretty substantial. That is. This here is for attached homes, which have seen a huge spike under COVID. Traditionally, if you look at the graph here, traditionally they don't go up as steep as what you see on single family homes. They have a greater and a faster price increase. But under COVID, as demand for homes has dwindled and the available inventory has really shrunk, we've seen it spike also. So if we go back 1 year, $340,000 to $439,000, still roughly $100,000 increase in a single year. And considering that you're looking at a price of $340,000 versus $540,000, I think it was, on the single family homes on that there, as a percentage of the sales price to have that $100,000 price increase, it's substantially more. So it has been outpacing the single family homes with their increase over that time period. Mm-hmm. And over a 20-year period, they were only about $175,000 on the price. Back at the beginning of COVID, they were closer to $250,000, under $300,000. If you look there, that would have been the low point right about the beginning of COVID. So if you go from $250,000 to $439,000, that is pretty close to double the price in 2 years. People who bought condos and attached homes have really, Don, you got a condo, don't you?
Correct.
We'll have to run comps for you one day. Yeah. But that's a nice thing. I mean, I saw a report a couple of weeks ago that the average homeowner in 1 year in the United States earned about $60,000 in equity in a single year. So as people are talking about where are we going with the economy and are we hitting a cliff or whatever, we have to remember in the comparisons, when people remember from 2006, 2007, when the market took a big tank, there was a lot of bad loans at that point. And while we've seen a huge raise in the prices, that part is similar to what happened, 15 years ago in the economy. The loans aren't bad. People have equity. So we're not looking at a huge bank of foreclosures that are coming on the market to drive it down. If anything, I think we're probably continuing in the general direction of where we are, unless something major happens in the economy.
Do you believe when the interest rates do go up, that we will see kind of a leveling? I don't look at a crash by any means, but I'm thinking that as the interest rates go up, we may see more of a level.
I agree with you. For those of you watching out there, Trish is saying that as interest rates go up, we may see a leveling. I refer to that as a plateau, and I also think that's going to happen. I had my first lead, just this past week, that came to me through our systems that said they wanted to buy before the interest rates went up more. And I figured that was going to be the impact, but to actually hear it from a client reinforced that belief, because I think, and I think what you would agree with on this, Trish, is that as the interest rates go up, our cash buyers are still there. They're not going to disappear. And there's a lot of cash. It's amazing how many cash buyers are out there in the world right now. But we're going to see the finance buyers begin to dwindle. And so depending on how many of those are in the market right now, and I know those are the hard ones to get their offers accepted anyways right now.
Yes.
But that will create a softening of the quantity of buyers, which may push us closer to a balance of the available inventory. So we don't have 6 offers, but you might still have 2 or 3, in the next year. This chart. Okay, so on this one here, it goes through the price of the average size of a detached home and the average size of an attached home. So you got on the top part of the blue, you've got single family homes, and on the bottom part in the green, you have your condos and townhouses, is basically what this is. And if you look at, let's start with Dawn. In the bottom there, in the green, if we look across that part there, percent from low, I'm going to step over here to do it. 154% up from where we were in 2011, 2012. So basically it's going back 20 years, and looking at there, we've seen 154% increase in it over a 20-year period in a single, 10 years, you're correct, 10 years, thank you, on that there. In just the last year, it's almost 42% that condos in Palm Desert have gone up in a single year. 1 year ago, a condo worth $354,928, so right around $350,000, is now just a nudge over $500,000 in a single year. That's a pretty huge growth. And that's with an average size of the home, they're figuring about 1,600 square feet. So if you got one smaller than that, it won't be quite as much as the high, but on a price per square foot, we would just have to multiply it out by that. I like this part of the graph that the Desert Housing Report included just in the last month. They used to not have this on an average size, but they added that feature in, and I think that really helps us to estimate, because Palm Springs houses are not the same square footage as Cathedral City as what is Palm Desert, and especially if you start going through different parts of the cities. So it allows us to look at an average size condo in Palm Desert is 1,600 square feet, or at least of the available sales that sold over this time period, the average square foot was 1,600. Versus in Palm Springs, it was 1,250. So on average, we have a little smaller condos here in Palm Springs than what they do in Palm Desert. Likewise in homes, if we go up to the top part here, let me just click off that to get it there. In Palm Springs, the average square foot of the homes that sold over the last year were 2,175 square feet, versus Palm Desert 2,200. So pretty close there. But if we compare it to Cathedral City, has an average of 1,800. So as you look at these, versus Indian Wells, okay, which is primarily luxury homes, has almost 3,500 square feet on average for their homes there. And if you look at the prices of them, like if we look at Palm Springs here, because Arthur, you sell a lot in Palm Springs, right?
Yes.
Okay. Palm Springs has really been leading the pack, okay, and it's the single family homes in Palm Springs that are doing it more than anybody. Let's see if I can get that up there. 279.6% over that same 10-year period. So almost 300% over a 10-year time period. And if we just look at it in the past year, it's 26.7%. So almost 27%, very close to 30. As a matter of fact, I use that ballpark number when I talk to people of about 30% that the average property went up in the desert in the past year. And that is pretty true. But Rancho Mirage actually led the pack in single family homes. A 40% increase in single family homes, which meant that a year ago, what was 900,000 is now 1.2 million, almost 1.3. Okay, for it. Who couldn't use an extra $400,000 these days? I don't know about you, that's almost buy you a tank of gas.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So it's pretty amazing what's going on, and of course the question on everybody's mind is how long can it sustain itself? Have any of you, especially Arthur and Trish, have either of you heard buyers really complain about the price of homes versus, like, if they had been thinking about it the last couple of years and now that they're finally wanting to do it, where they're at? What sort of feedbacks have your clients given you?
Oh, I have several that have said, if we could have done it 2 years ago, that would have been great. However, circumstances is what I'm seeing with people in this buying frenzy. It's circumstances of where they can go now because they could work from home, versus where they had to stay put before because their job was close by. So I'm seeing people that said, yeah, when they were cheaper, we wish we could have done it then.
Sure. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah.
A lot of buyers are getting priced out of their
Yes.
desired locations.
They are.
Yes.
And they missed the boat, and no fault of their own. Nobody can predict what's going on. So a lot of buyers are just out of luck because they just can't afford what they could afford a few years ago. And they're staying put.
Yeah.
From a buyer's perspective, this is, of all our investments, this has been the best investment because interest rates are low, but the asset is becoming more valuable. So not only do we get to live here, but we also get to accrue value for our asset. So it's a great timing. A great argument for anyone is to say, what's going to make you more money? That money sitting in the bank, or buying a home that will absolutely increase in value much faster than your money sitting in the bank at 1%.
That touches on something that I've heard now from a couple of sources on it. And to me, there's a similarity between what happened in 2001 and what I'm seeing right now. This again supports why we're not heading to a crash right now. But right now, some investors are switching from stocks to properties. Okay, and it's because of the stability. I'm even hearing about some corporations starting up to buy properties to add them into the portfolio. You've seen this too?
Oh, I get calls from corporations. I get calls. They're looking for houses to buy.
Right. I'd probably get a handful of investors, but some of them could easily be corporations. But
Yeah.
they're literally putting them like into their retirement portfolios and then renting out the properties, knowing that they can make money on the rental and it'll increase in value, like what Don was talking about here. It's a dynamic that is pushing it. And the last time I saw something similar to this was in 2001, right after 9/11. And I don't know if you guys remember, but after the World Trade Center was bombed, for literally like a month afterwards, people started selling stocks and switching into real estate because they were unsure where the direction of the economy was going at that time. And real estate was a much safer bet. They didn't realize that it was going to shoot up how it was, but I remember one of my buyers at that time who bought a home over in Deepwell paid about $200,000 for that home. And by the time you were at 2006, 2007, at that peak, it was worth like $800,000 at that point. Even after the fall, a deep well home is now in the $2 million range. So if you look at the assurity of the return on your money, it does it. And all of these statistics here, if I went through Coachella even, let's look at an East Valley one, a $400,000 home is, a $300,000 home is now $400,000, 25% in 1 year. In Cathedral City, a $429,000 is now worth $530,000. Again, roughly that $100,000 increase in a single year. And both of those neighborhoods are just regular middle class, blue collar, and some professional level, tradespeople, just regular middle America that lives in those neighborhoods. And for those type of people to see a $100,000 value increase, that's huge.
So on the other side of that, we have, Arthur and I both have had clients that are ever in that demographic, in those neighborhoods in that demographic. And now they can't qualify for a loan. So.
Are you talking about people who own there?
No, I'm talking about people who want to buy there.
It's very difficult, yeah.
Or demographic, economic demographics.
Yeah.
It's difficult, and so
The
I have
closer-
real mixed feelings on that.
Well, the closer you get to an entry-level buyer right now, if you look at it, if we can put on a spectrum of the mega wealthy versus a first-time buyer, the closer you move to that first-time buyer, because it could just be, it doesn't have to be a first-time, it could be somebody in their 20s, maybe even their 30s, but they haven't built up a large amount of savings, and maybe they've got the job length and they've got a decent income, but without the savings, and when you start going over asking price, it pushes it so their credit has to be stronger and their down payment has to be stronger. It's extremely difficult to take care of those folks. I would agree. And I'm not sure of the solution. Yes.
Arthur was saying, those corporations, et cetera. My son works in wealth management, and it's a genuine part of portfolios now. That especially larger corporations buying apartment buildings, buying condominiums, because it not only gives cash flow, but it hides taxes. So it's a deferral of taxes at the same time as storing and accruing value. So it's good on a number of levels for these big corporations.
I agree. I don't know how well the sound transferred over there, but Don was talking about he has a son who works in investment for corporations and how they're buying up homes as a way to hide taxes and see the investment value come back later. And I wonder with corporations if some of it could be so they could be offering hiring bonuses for certain people to come and work for them. They can offer housing, especially as you start looking in major cities where housing is extremely expensive. So why not begin to buy up the property so they can take care of that element of their hiring? I can see that. I remember as a young man, College in the Desert had a campus house, like a regular 2-story, 1,800 square foot home, on the campus, and that's where the dean of the college lived. And I thought, how cool would that be, to live and work? But not everybody thinks the way I do.
It used to be just high-end executives, but now it's even mid-management as a carrot. Come and work for us, and your housing is subsidized, basically.
Correct. Yep, I can see it. So moving on here to the next slide. This here is a 3-month roving average of attached, detached, and total sales. And if you can see on the right-hand side, the top number of 852, that's the total sales that happened in February of 2022. Okay, 852 sales in 1 month. 608 of those were single-family homes, and 244 were condos and townhouses. So that's what it breaks down there. And if you go back just, roughly 2 years to February of 2021, okay, you're right about here at that 1,057. But that's because as you see these here, as we go later in the season, there's still some seasonality to our sales here. So you will see probably in about the 1,300, that's the number of escrows that actually close. Those aren't offers accepted, but that's actually the transferring of the title and how it tracks. So the little dip here, because the average escrow is about 30 days, okay, would be that these sales happened then in December. We closed escrow in February, we went through the season, we saw that there. And now as we have that similar time period, we are seeing a dip of roughly 450 to 500 homes selling in a single month over that same time period. That's because when we get to the available inventory, you're gonna see the impact that that's having on the numbers. This is also a time where we might lose a few agents in the world. In the last few years, sales have been pretty phenomenal. I don't think you guys had anything to worry about, but out in the world out there, a new agent trying to come on board and to build a business is gonna find it even much more difficult. As the value of the homes goes up, the people who are selling those homes more and more want to trust it to a seasoned professional, okay, when they do it. And there's so much fewer of them, like how Trish was talking earlier. If they want to buy something, okay, in this market, it's going to be extremely difficult. How do you sell what you've got if you still need somewhere to live and you really just want to move a few blocks away and see if you can upgrade your property? You
that
probably
I'm
can't.
finding,
That dynamic is not an easy one to do right now. Okay. Let's go to our next one. Attached detail, 12-month rolling average. Again, 985 homes in a month, almost 700 of them condos, 300 of them, I'm sorry, 700 single family homes, 300 of them for condos and that there. Considering that it's been the past year, we have not seen as much of the seasonality. I remember August of 2020, okay, sales took off like a rocket at that point there, and they have stayed phenomenally high. If this graph were to go back 10 years, you would see dips in it and stuff like that, but under COVID, it stayed pretty much the same. But then we hit season, and so we've had a little bit of a return to seasonality this year that we did not have in years past. Okay, but it's returning to a seasonality at a very high and active market. Now, moving on to the next one here. Home sales by city, okay? So, oh, there we go. February 22. So the gold is 1 year ago, and the blue is this year. So as you can see in virtually every city, there's more that sold last year versus this year. That's in Cathedral City.
because of the inventory.
Yep, that's inventory, exactly, Trish. 225 homes in Palm Desert last year, 164 this year. Palm Springs, 190 homes last year, 167 this year. So we're seeing, a 15 to 25% increase depending on which city that we're looking at, on it there. And these three cities, okay, carry the bulk of the sales. These three cities are almost as much, like Quinta, Palm Desert, and Palm Springs almost has as much sales as the entire rest of the valley. Okay, if you throw either Indio or Rancho Mirage into it, it definitely tips the scales. Those are the next tier of the biggest ones with it. But at least there are still sales happening, okay? Because I can remember one time after the fall of the economy in 2007, 9 months without a sale, okay, that Tracy and I went. And that was an extremely difficult time. And I think you might have been the single right after that dry streak, Tom.
You were begging.
I was. Yeah, those were the days. This one here, home sales by price range. Okay, this one here is kind of interesting because we talk about an average price range, and if you remember, it shows about $600,000 when we looked at the graph earlier for the average price range. That is not the biggest share of the market, the $500,000 to $600,000 or the $600,000 to $700,000 range, right in there. It's this $200,000 to $500,000 price range where the bulk of the sales happen. But that is also the most competitive market because of that. There are so many people that a regular family needs a home under $500,000. How do you afford the payments? Even with the interest rate, if they creep up to 4%, 4% of $500,000 is $2,000 a month. You start getting beyond that on a regular payment, that's difficult on a regular family. If we could find a condo in the $200,000 to $300,000 range.
I'm seeing multiple offers.
Multiple offers. It's very difficult on it. And the 300 to 400, that fits your Desert Hot Springs home, that is sitting there, and that's why it's going the way it is. But last year we would sell 233 homes over the same 3-month period in the 300 to 400,000 range. This year, it's less than half, 111 homes in that same period. Yeah. Inventory, absolutely, inventory. And I'll tell you, I don't see the new home builders building fast enough in order to correct this. I don't see the cities taking on low-income housing at a
That's-
level that could correct it. Yes.
I have a real thing, you know, back when we had the crash and so forth and so on. I mean, I saw La Quinta step up and they had a really good program.
Yes.
And I haven't seen much of these programs now in our valley in the last 10 years or more. And the homes that are being built are, you know, high-end homes, 2,500 square feet. In the past, first-time home buyers and or middle time home buyers, they need a home around 1,700 square feet to raise a family. They, you know, in an affordable rate. And there's no, I'm not seeing builders
Why build a home?
wanting to
Right.
wanting to go that. And then of course it may also be, you know, land, whether, you know, the land is available.
I would agree. I mean, builders are in the business of making money by building homes. That's it. So how does it behoove a builder to want to build low-income housing that he's not going to make as much money from, and takes him almost the same amount of money and effort as it is to push a home beyond the $600,000 range, where he can still have plenty of buyers and make a lot more money doing the same amount of work. It's a very difficult formula, and I can see that being an increasingly, a very increasing need. And I think our political government, you know, is going to have to begin to address this at some time into the near future. The last time that I saw something kind of fitting that mold, and I'll tell you, at the time, I didn't really like it. But as I look at it now, I think it might be the model for something that works. And it was about 10 years ago, during that time period that you were talking about, Trish, about seeing some low-income housing being built here in the desert. Indian Wells gave, I can't remember if it was $500,000 or several $1 million, but whatever was their slush fund that was allocated to them through the federal and the state governments to build low-income housing, gave their money to Indio and Coachella and said, and La Quinta, and said, you guys build it. And at the time, what I didn't like about that was, well, low-income people would like to live close to their work, because if you think about it, in Indian Wells, you've got a lot of service people there. You've got maids, you've got busboys, you've got waiters, you've got pool guys, you've got all of these people, and they don't want to drive, you know, a half an hour to get to work every day, you know. And we all know there's only one main artery through the desert. It's Highway 111, and as you do that more and more, it turns into a commute. So, but they did it. And as I look at it now, because in Palm Springs, I'd have to look at the charts, but I would bet the average vacant lot sells for considerably more than Desert Hot Springs. And that element of adding to the price either turns into a local city government contributing more and more money to build that low-income housing than if they bought it in one town over in Desert Hot Springs or Cathedral City, Thousand Palms, Bermuda Dunes, wherever, where the land's going for a little bit less. And
It's a double-edged sword.
Also,
it is a double-edged sword.
have you, I don't know, it doesn't really apply to this one, so maybe the question's out of the way, but also we're not seeing builders building multifamily complexes, and now, so consequently, low inventory rents are high.
Well, true. The closest thing that I can recall, okay, on that there, that I have worked with a client, I have friends of mine that I sold a Bermuda Dunes home for them a year and a half ago now. And their idea was, let's sell that market, even then the market was climbing, and we'll buy something else. We'd like to upgrade, we don't like our backyard, blah, blah, blah. We could never find a home. We sell those for $650. By the time a little bit of period has gone and they're starting to see the inventory they like, because inventory was dwindling, they were $750 and $8. And now, honestly, they're $850 to $9, you know, and what they want, and they couldn't buy it. And with them, I went through all the new builders from, actually some in North Indio, a lot in Palm Desert, and then here in Palm Springs. And we visited each of those. They were, again, by the time you look at what they really wanted, and a garage and a pool and, the things that are just a regular house, to most of the world, 850, 900,000. Some of them were over $1 million. So, and that put them out of their price range. And they have good jobs. I mean, both the family and that couple, both the couple and that family. So yeah, so in home sales by price range, we can see we're selling more or selling less on average than we did last year. But as you move into the higher price ranges, on a very, very competitive, and in some places we are selling more in the higher end, and that's because the buyers have been forced to shift up. If they want that 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or if they want a 3-car garage, if they, if there's an element to the home they really want, or if they want that 4th bedroom, those are the homes that are going higher on the price range fastest. And if they have a real need, they've got no choice but to step up and buy it. Okay, so this here, Coachella Valley total inventory. This is something we've been alluding to in the whole time. This is going down. We've all heard it, but this is the real chart for it. We are right now, okay, from March 1st, 2017 to March 1st, 2022. So looking at it on a month-by-month status over the last 5 years on this here. We're down to 607 total homes in those 10 Coachella Valley cities that we saw at the beginning of this presentation on the map. That's it. And think about this. How many times did we look at this chart and we saw 600 to 900 sales a month out of 600 homes? That means many homes are selling in less than a month. And a new one is coming on. Now I know, well, you're sold in a week, and went for 50 grand over. And that's it. And it's been that way basically for the last year. We did get up to 900 in March of 2021. So in just a year ago, we did. And with a little bit of uphill here, but then back down. People just aren't releasing their homes. So even though they can get more money than they ever could, if you really want it, yeah.
What I'm seeing with a lot of Canadian friends who've been coming down here for years is they can't find a rental.
Correct.
So the people are either renting because they live here and they're renting 12 months a year, or the rents are astronomical, $6,000-$7,000 a month to rent. They're going to Texas, they're going to Arizona, they're going to Florida because it's unaffordable to rent here.
It is for the average person. And
Right.
I know, for us as a company, our rental leads are our hardest leads to satisfy.
Yes.
Both for the clients who have a rental need, and it's not just the seasonal renters, even the annual renters, like I
Yes.
talked about, the blue collar people of the world. And if you've got any sort of dings on your credit, you better hope that your lease does not expire and the landlord wants to change tenants. Because those people, I don't know what they do. But yes, I've heard from, because somebody who 3-4 years ago could rent $2,500 a month and get a nice 2 or 3 bedroom condo. I mean, nothing super fancy, but just a nice decent place. That place is probably $4 grand or more now, maybe
Yes.
even 5.
I'm just speaking to availability, that it's not just purchasers, but I think part of the reason people are holding on is they might have multiple properties, but they make so much renting, it's a great investment.
It is. It's also, our demographics of our visitors, I believe, has changed. And I know it's changed in our buyers. I used to just see what I call regular folk who would come out here and, like I say, a $2,500 seasonal rental was affordable, and it doesn't matter if you're a school teacher or a cop or whatever in the world. They could have been a grocery store manager or a clerk, from wherever they're from. And they would come here and they would spend a month or a couple of months a year and they would enjoy it, and it was affordable. Now we're getting to where I call it techno-urban. I've been using that phrase more and more. I don't have exact data on this. I believe the average amount of money earned by the people who are still coming for those very reasons, that the rents have gone up and the landlords know that they can get those rents, it has driven up because we're still occupied. And if you look at, I think part of the signs of this, look at the car dealerships that have been upgraded in the last year or two. Here in Palm Springs, in the last 5 years, the Mercedes dealership, the BMW dealership have both had a facelift on them. The Porsche dealership is brand new and spectacular. The Lexus dealership is going through a remodel right now. The Chevy dealership, it looks like it's got half its inventory gone. When you drive by it, it's a huge place, but I don't think they can keep them in stock. And in Rancho Mirage, where we've got the Ferrari and the whatever other high-end brands on there, they added a whole new wing about a year ago. So that to me shows the demographics of the people that are coming to the desert is scaling up. And they'll pay more, even though it is. It surprises me how much money some people have. But when you have this few homes, and I know it's affected rental also, it's very difficult. And it's hard to satisfy the clients also because the agents are working so hard to make the sales on the ones they are working. Because while Trish was on the selling end with 6 offers, imagine being one of those buyer's agents. One of
I'm
the
on that
6.
end now.
Now you're on that end, yes.
And I recently have this one buyer that's very determined and well qualified, has all her ducks in the row, moving here from Seattle. And we have now lost out on 2 different multiple offer, and these places came on and were on the market 1 day or 2 days.
Right, and there's a race, and they get 20 showings in 2 days. And see, I don't. As an agent, you work like 5 times as hard to make that one sale as when the dynamics were different, and there was a plethora of inventory at that time. I remember.
And you could wheel and deal or feel like you were working very hard for your buyer
Right.
in that market. But now it's so completely different. It's flipped the other way.
I remember when Don and I, me and his wife and Don all went out and we looked at condos when he bought a decade ago. We probably looked at 12 condos in one day and then another 5 or 6 the next day. Okay, on it, when we did the bulk of your shopping on it. And then from that, we whittled it down to our top 2 or 3, and then we went back to those. These days, we'd be lucky if we'd have 2 or 3 to show you. We might only have 1.
And you better put your offer in that day.
Yeah.
You got
You
to
better
stack.
put your
Those
offer in
were,
that day.
yeah, those were the ones that fit. You had other ones that really didn't fit.
You're right, yeah. After we saw 1 or 2, we could eliminate some, and we still saw like somewhere between 12 and 20 condos in 2 days. Yeah, these days it's 1 or 2, and if you don't put an offer in that day, you're not even gonna get a chance to go over asking. It's an amazing dynamic. So months of sales ratio, okay, is this one here. And what's happening here on this chart is that we're watching the amount of time that a property sits on the market get less and less as we're describing that. So right now, the average home sits on the market for 0.6 of a month. So roughly a half a month that the average home sits on there. And I remember I had a seller in here the other day, I think Arthur and I, worked him. And I tried to tell him, look, if it's out there 2 weeks and we don't have an offer, you're probably overpriced. And the gentleman didn't like hearing that at the time. He thought I was being a salesman, but it's the truth. And as I'm saying, well, the market's going to tell us if we're over, because he's of course moving his price up and up and up and up, as he does it. And I can understand everybody wants the most for their home, they can get on the seller side. But this is a stat that shows you. And even March of 20, they were on the market for a month there. And we had roughly the same amount of inventory, maybe a hair more a year ago. The inventory hasn't dropped off a cliff in a year, but it's been remaining low. But it has tightened up a little bit, and now we're down to half a month. So where are more homes going to come from? I don't know. Months of sales by price range. Again, gold is a year ago, blue is now. So if we go off to the far right, okay, now, even in the $1 million plus range, the homes are barely lasting a month. 1.3 months, okay, for that there. As you push yourself further and further this way, 2%, or 0.2, of a month, so that's basically a week. 25% would be 7 days.
Well, yeah, if you're gonna buy it, gotta get it now, today,
Yeah. So, I mean, nothing is lasting on the market really even a month until you get the million plus, and they're still selling very fast. Month by sales by city, everybody's less than a month still. I mean, when price ranges are, it doesn't matter if you're in Indio or Cathedral City, Desert Hot Springs, Palm Desert, which city that you're in. It's all selling for less than a month, and last year it would have been just over a month on average. Days in the market, okay, still the same kind of stat, you see it dropping, 29 days. Realize that includes escrow. Okay, so here where they're showing 29 days, that means you were on the market in less than 2 weeks. You probably got an offer that you accepted, many times less than a week, okay? And then it closed in 1 to 3 weeks. So where we used to have a month to 45 days for an escrow, it's now incredibly short. And another important part of that statistic, that includes Indian lease land.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that.
So, I mean, well, if those were broken out, maybe on those, we'd be seeing them 35 to 45 days on Indian lease land, but those used to be 2 to 3 month transactions.
I just closed one on Indian lease land, and it had to be, for this particular complex, it went almost 60 days. Because
60
the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the leaseholders are all tightened down because of COVID and so forth, so their length of time on the stack on the deal is
60 days is more, but I always said you were above average. But it's true, if it's Indian lease land, it's gonna take a little longer, but that 29 includes an average of those. They didn't break those out separate.
Okay, I'd love to see them breaking out that, so we have a better idea of that.
Days in market for detached homes, again, we're looking at less than a month on all these. They've just thrown in some new charts there on it. This here, the price discount from list, okay? And this one I find interesting because up until 2 to 3 years ago, and then let's say pre-COVID, if somebody asked me, well, what's a realistic asking price to offer on a home? I would often say the average home sells between 3 and 5% of its asking price. So there's a little room for negotiating. That ain't the case. I mean, as we've all discussed, they're going over market. On this chart, it has been at 0.0%. And I believe that may be because they don't have any way to, maybe they just don't mathematically want to show it. I believe that a truer number is in the 101 to 110% range on an average. Because there are still on occasions one that will go at asking or below. But I think a truer average would put that over 100%. Median discount. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at this wrong. I have to follow this side. I was just looking at that number up there. So when it goes negative, so they are over asking price on that. No, they're showing it at 0%, you're right. These are actually, I don't know, this chart's confusing me.
This is under your, the
Under
minuses are
100%.
under asking price, that's over.
Yes, you're
asking
right.
price.
I believe this should be up higher in this range, in the 101 to 110%. Price discount detached homes, still showing just a hair under, but only at 0.3% in Indian Wells. And it is showing here that they're going 3.5%, 3%, 2.3% over asking price as you look at Palm Springs, Bermuda Dunes, Coachella, Indio. Okay, that feels a little more real on that there, because that's showing them going over. And attached homes, condos, running in similar kind of numbers of 0.5% to 2%. And there we have it. So at this point, you can see, I mean, those are real statistics. As current they get, I'll get a new one of these reports sometime this next month. What do you think? Anybody have any thoughts?
It's just the reality of the world we live in now, and things are going up, and we have no really control. And people just buyers especially have to be ready to go immediately and even ready to go with cash. There's no guarantee you're gonna get it anyway. So it's a tough market out there, especially for buyers. Listings are golden these days, and that's just the world we live in.
It is. I had one of our agents told me he had a buyer with basically $500,000 trying to buy a $700,000 house, and almost got it. On the one where they came the closest, I happened to know the other agent very well, so he talked with me a little more than maybe he ethically should, but we had turned out number 2. But at the very end, a full cash buyer was willing to waive all contingencies and close in less than 2 weeks. At which point, even though my people were willing to basically match them on the price, they lost. Yes.
Here's a question, Eric, again from a buyer's perspective. This sounds like a great time to be an agent, and I just wonder how many, I would call them pretenders, are out there now getting their license and saying, I'm going to make a whole lot of money because I really don't have to know how to sell. The house is going to sell, the environment sells itself. So how do you, as a longtime agent and your experienced agent, how do you leverage that? How do you make somebody say, look, there's a value add in dealing with, Remax Desert Properties?
Well, I'll tell you, it is more difficult than ever right now for a new agent. It is. Because it's easy to make a sale if you have the listings. But usually as a new agent, you work buyers. Okay? And so buyers, if you're losing 75, 85, 90% of the properties that you make bids on, you can be 6 homes in and still have not won a bid, and your buyer is getting discouraged at that point. And the people who are listing are so few in number that you really need to be an established agent with a track record in order to make it work. I would say that newer agents probably want to go on teams, okay, so they can still be doing real estate business, but they probably haven't generated enough of a clientele yet to carry themselves by their own. And marketing is where it comes to. I've said many times, you can't be a real estate salesperson until you're a real estate marketing person. And so you either have to have a sphere of clientele that's used to using you, that is giving you their business or their referrals or something like that, or you've got to have a marketing strategy to entice strangers to give you their business. And either one of those, require work and money to do it. So that's why I think we are going to see some agents leave the business here in the near, especially if the economy, and I hate to bring it, if the war in Ukraine, goes worse, and I feel very, very sorry for the people in Ukraine. If gas prices continue to go up too much, if interest rates, go up too much, as we begin to see even some of the buyers disappear from the market, I don't believe housing prices are really going down. I mentioned about in 2001 when they went up after 9/11. Everybody here, everybody out there watching this on the internet, I bet can tell a story about their parents who bought a house in their hometown for less than an automobile sells today.
Mm-hmm.
And while we may look at charts and graphs and talk about, the market's going to correct itself or whatever, yeah, there are corrections, but it ain't ever going back to when any of us were young. It's not going to do that. So the general direction is going to continue in the same way, and I think we have reached a position in life where fewer and fewer people are going to be able to buy homes. My good friend, who I've talked about a couple times here about maybe buying a house in Palm Desert, sometimes throws into the conversation, well, maybe we'll just have to be a renter. And that saddens me.
Just a quick follow-up on that first question. So how does somebody, we were fortunate because we lived in Canada, so we didn't know anybody in California. We were lucky because some of your YouTube stuff actually attracted us to cutting. How does somebody who doesn't have contacts here choose the right realtor?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, they call me. I think, are you trying to throw me a softball?
No, I'm just saying, how do you know like that somebody has a stable of properties or something like that? Because everybody's going to say that they're the best realtor in the business.
referrals.
Maybe
Well,
their history.
yeah, I think the history, I think Google searches, I think when people say they're gonna go do research, their first line of research is a Google search. And I think that still works true, and it does take, hopefully they know somebody in the business. If they're trying to do it totally from scratch, I don't know that they're gonna successfully make that decision all the time, and that's why the typical agent will work somewhere for 2 years and then they move on. A brand new agent will usually hire on somewhere, but a large percentage of them within 1.5 to 2 years change brokerages. And that's because as they get a little smarter about what it takes to do the business and they see how the pieces work and how their broker works with them and their business is, and whether or not they can pay their bills, they make adjustments on it. But I think it does matter, like Arthur said there, if you can look at the history of where it is, and you can. If you go to, if you do a Google search, and if you look at any major website, if you look at Redfin or Zillow or Trulia or Homes.com or whatever, you could put in my name or Arthur's name or Trisha's name or a brokerage name and see if that person or that company is doing business. Because if they are, their word carries a little more weight than somebody who doesn't have history.
That's great information. That's
Referrals are really, really big.
Yep.
If you get a referral from somebody that they're pretty much gonna be your
I have,
client.
yeah, I have a little story on that. I have a home that I sold to a client. I sold it to her in 1993 for $125,000 in Palm Springs. House with a pool. And we just sold it in December. Sold that same house for $550,000. And it was, I also had somebody that had referred the buyer to me. And the client was also my first buyer there, called me to say, I'm interested in selling my house. We're moving to out of state. It was referral. It was referral all the way around. And she trusted me all these years later to still be able to help her.
And that's great. You must have stayed in contact with her for
I did.
A few times at least, because
Yeah, over the years, I mean, we would contact now and then, check in, I mean, it was, Palm Springs is a small town. So, we, you see people, you talk to people, so yes.
well, and it does help to keep communicating with them, because
Yeah.
I saw a presentation from somebody else that has statistics that 85% of home buyers or sellers within 3 months of whatever transaction they did, 85% of them say that they would use their same realtor again. Yet if you track those people over 5 or 10 years, less than 20% do so. Okay, and it comes down to just staying in contact with your clients, and I'm fortunate most of my clients become my friends. And
that's been
and those of us who have been in the business for a while, I think, can attest to that. I know Arthur has talked about that too with his.
Yep.
Well, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I want to say thank you for participating in this today and allowing me to do this. To those of you out there on the internet watching this on one of our social media channels, please like or subscribe. And if you'd like to see more of this, check out the rest of our channels. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to call the Palm Springs office of RE/MAX Desert Properties. I'm sure in the information below you'll find my contact information. Otherwise, just Google me. Eric G. Meeks. I'm the broker at RE/MAX Desert Properties, and thank you very much for watching. Have a good day. Thank you for watching the Desert Real Estate Channel. I hope you found these tips interesting and enjoyable. Hope they help make you a better realtor and a better real estate buyer or seller. Please like or subscribe to these videos somewhere in the boxes below. And I'm Eric Meeks. If I can ever do anything for you personally, please don't hesitate to call. Thank you. Have a good day.